In 1914, most Americans had no interest in fighting in a war 3,000 miles away. However, events would begin pulling the country closer and closer to the conflict. What were some of these events? When World War I began, opinions were strongly divided over which side, if any, the United States should support. Socialists criticized the conflict, insisting that it was a capitalistic endeavor to enrich Germany and Great Britain. The pacifist William Jennings Bryan declared that the war was evil, and the United States should set an example by staying out of the fight. Nationwide, large segments of the population spoke out against the notion of their sons going to fight on foreign soil. However, the country followed developments with great interest. 11 million Americans had blood ties to the Central Powers, and large percentages of them openly expressed support for the German Kaiser. Millions of Irish Americans also sympathized with Germany, hoping the war might offer an opportunity for Irish independence from Great Britain. The majority of Americans, bound to Great Britain by heritage and history, hoped that the Allied powers would prevail. The transatlantic cables, controlled by Great Britain, filtered out information that would harm the image of the Allies. Instead, Americans were fed tales of the Germans attacking civilians, destroying towns, and burning churches and hospitals. As the war progressed, the American public increasingly viewed the Germans as villains. Economically, the country was closely tied to the Allied powers. While the United States traded with Germany before the war, twice as many U.S. exports went to Great Britain and France. Once the shooting began, American industries were bombarded with orders from the Allies. Weapons, cannon powder, copper wire, bullets, armored vehicles, and even submarines were desperately needed. Trade with Britain and France quadrupled, while trade with Germany collapsed to near zero. The primary reason for the lack of trade with Germany was a naval blockade enforced by the British Royal Navy. Initially, it was used to prevent war supplies from reaching the Kaiser's forces, but it was later extended to include food and neutral ports. As a result, American ships could not reach German buyers. By 1917, the consequences for the German people were dire. Famine decimated the country, and an estimated 750,000 died from starvation and hunger-related diseases. Germany responded by enacting a counter-blockade against Great Britain. However, the German Navy had to use submarines, known as U-boats, to police the waters. Unlike surface vessels, U-boats could not stop vessels, send crewmen to board and search them, or force them to turn back. Submarines were submerged and could be easily rammed or sunk if they surfaced. As a result, Germany announced a submarine war area around the British Isles. Germany declared that any British or Allied vessel that entered these waters would be sunk. This German aggression at sea would soon outrage the general public and test America's commitment to neutrality.